Rabbi Harold Kushner has spoken about his affinity for a story by the Colombian author Gabriel Garcia Marquez. In his tale, a small town is infected by a disease that causes the people to lose their memory. One citizen that is unaffected labels everything in town. For example, on a table, he puts a sign, "This is a table." He places a note around the neck of a cow that says, "This is a cow. Milk it daily." When he is finished labeling everything, he goes to the center of town and puts up two final signs. The first says, "The name of our village is Macondo." And the second sign says, "There is a God." Rabbi Kushner wonders what the author is trying to say in this curious parable. He comes to the following answer. In the end, don't forget two things. Do not forget the community of which you are a part, because God is found in communities. And never forget that God exists. This week's Torah portion is named Kiddushim. It is considered the heart of the Torah, in part because it is basically in the center of the entire Torah scroll, and mostly because it contains a list of moving commandments, moral and ethical values that are core to our understanding of what it means to be Jewish. Commandments such as love your neighbor as yourself, do not steal, judge fairly, feed the poor with compassion, and be honest. In total, there are 51 mitzvot, ranking Kiddushim in 5th place on the famous chart that ranks the number of commandments per Torah portion. That's a chart only a rabbi could love and consider famous. You may recognize Kiddushim because it is also the Torah portion we read each Yom Kippur afternoon. Yes, it's that good. This week, though, as I examined Kiddushim, it was not the commandments that caught my attention. Instead, it was God. The portion begins, God spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the whole Israelite community and say to them, you shall be holy, for I, Adonai, am holy. You shall honor your mother and father and keep Shabbat. I, Adonai, am your God. Do not turn to idols. I, Adonai, am your God. You," and I'm paraphrasing here, "you should leave food for the poor and the stranger. I am Adonai, your God. You shall not insult the deaf or put a stumbling block before the blind. I am Adonai." And it is like this through the entire portion, over and over again. Ani Adonai Elohechem. I am Adonai, your God. No doubt, God was seen by our ancestors as one that rewarded those that followed commandments and punished those that did not. Attaching God to each commandment was a carrot and stick approach to motivating them. However, I think there could be another reason why God is so present in Kiddushim. It's connected to Rabbi Kushner's takeaways from the story I mentioned. Remember the community of which we are a part, because God is found in communities. And never forget that God exists. Because I am a rabbi, some people are surprised to learn that I wrestle with what God is, how God works, and even if there is a God. I know I'm not alone. God is central to Jewish tradition. Also vital within Judaism is the permission that each of us is given to question God's existence. We Jews are not required to believe in God. In fact, we are encouraged to ask hard questions about the ultimate and to consider God in many different ways. I take great comfort in this. Kiddushim provides us with an additional way to contemplate God. God can be found amidst those in a community where people are striving to live by the highest of standards. It makes sense to me that God could dwell in a community where people are trying to treat each other with respect, honesty, and love. How do we know that God in our tradition is connected to each of these specific ideals? Because Kiddushim says so. This regular presence of God throughout Kiddushim reinforces Rabbi Kushner's second assertion: never forget that God exists. Kiddushim gives us, in fact, at least 51 additional ways to consider how God can exist in our lives. This is why I like the ending of the tale I shared with you. Despite my wrestling with God, something deep inside of me affirms the message on the final sign that is put in the center of town. There is a God. We do not want to be like the community in the story, one that loses its memory of what's most important. Instead, tonight, as we read from the center of our Torah, let us recommit ourselves to the lofty standards set for us within Kiddushim, and let our actions be the signs that we put up to show each other the way to create a connected, caring, loving society. One that we can be proud to live in, and one where maybe, just maybe, God resides. Shabbat Shalom.